Okay, so I was made aware of an article the other day called Fake Roman Dodecahedron Causes Upset. Well, this is a fake Roman dodecahedron, so you can imagine I was quite invested to see what this article had to say. Subsequently, today we're taking the time to talk about this article and its problems. So the article was a BBC Sounds app listening thingy, and it highlighted a problem with the Roman dodecahedron. Now, something completely different from us today, because I thought it was quite important to talk about this. So you've got no polished, edited production, just me waffling about this and why it's a problem. Now, first of all, usual disclaimer, I'm not an archaeologist, I'm not an academic, I'm not a historian. So what you see from me today, or hear from me today, is kind of my perspective from a moral standpoint. So I'm not going to play the BBC Sounds interview today on this video because I'm concerned about copyright issues, but I will put a link in the description below. It's only 4.5 minutes long. I'm going to get someone else to read out the quotes that I want to highlight from it, and I don't want those to be taken out of context, so feel free to listen to that interview after you've watched this one, of course. Okay, so the context is this. The Roman dodecahedron. The interviewer is somebody called Richard Parker of the Norton Disney Archaeological Group. He's been interviewed by, I think, a man called Scott Dalton from BBC, I think it's BBC Radio Lincolnshire. Now, so Disney Norton Archaeological Group found the most recent find of one of these. So this, of course, is my own 3D printed model. Paid money to have it 3D printed by someone skilled to do that, and I purchased the paint, which is like a metallic-y bronze colour just to make it look good. I'll address all that separately very shortly. So the context of this, there's been something like 120 to 130 of them have been found, probably the higher number of that. 33 of them have been found in Britain, and the context is, well, they've all been found within what you would describe as the Roman era. However, none of them have been found within what is now Italy, that sort of traditional heartland of the Roman Empire. They've all been found in sort of an area you would describe, for want of a better word, as a Celtic area. So 33 from Britain and a lot more from sort of the Western Europe. I'll put a map up so you can get an idea of where these have all been found. Suffice to say, I did a video on this about a year ago, maybe less, so you can look at that and look at the debate of what they could be for, because obviously there's 100 different ideas around what they could be. Okay, so let's go straight to the interview with Richard Parker from the Norton Disney Archaeological Group, the people that found this Roman dodecahedron.
We periodically searched the internet on the Norton Disney dodecahedron, and there it popped up on eBay.
Right, okay.
We are ever vigilant about what people are saying about us and trying to protect our intellectual property.
Okay, so immediately we have Richard Parker scouring the internet for making sure everything that is said about them sounds good. That sort of sounds like normal due diligence. Then he seems to find one of these on eBay. Now, the interviewer, Scott Dalton, highlights that this is made very clear that this is a replica. There's no sort of intent to try and sell an original Roman dodecahedron. However, Richard Parker then goes on to highlight what we think will be the main issue here, because this eBay listing has used a number of images from the archaeological digs with the Norton Disney Archaeological Society. So you're led to believe, here we go, this is going to be about copyright images of the photos, I guess.
We're a volunteer and donation funded group, and to find someone who has used our work for commercial gain is somewhat galling.
Okay, so assuming the person that listed this item is the person that sort of made it, they used their skill to make that item, they're going to sell it and use the skill that they've developed probably over a lot of years to make money from that. Can't see too much harm from that. I paid money for this to be made, and the video that I made got 500,000 views. I wouldn't have been able to do that without this replica. In fact, I really hope that the video that I made kind of raised awareness of this object, and then it might even lead people into this discipline. But look at the amount of comments on the video that I did about this. I've never had a video with that many comments. Now, if this was just about copyright on a picture or a few pictures, then I wouldn't really be making a video about this, despite the fact that I try myself to make sure that I use Creative Commons. But I do believe as well that the Norton Disney Archaeological Society, when they put these out, they did it first of all under a Creative Commons license. I'll put the source for that here down below. But they then decided that actually, no, they're going to redact that at some point later down the line, which I don't think you can do. However, none of that is about this, as the interview sort of goes on and alludes to. There's a much bigger issue here.
You could argue we are being exploited.
Okay, well, here's where things get really interesting, because the interviewer, Scott Dalton, good on him, he flips things on their head and he asks the question, I'll read it clearly. Isn't this a good thing? The ultimate compliment. Someone loves this so much that they made a replica and they are getting people interested in archaeology. Now, Interestingly, Richard suggested that he too made a 3D printed object to help them show the local community. Thank God for that. But alarm bells now start to ring with this next comment.
We maintain control of it so it doesn't get out of hand.
Okay, well, he then goes on to suggest that the listing on eBay implies it was an accurate model. This isn't. This has just got holes the same size, but they're not actually the same size on the originals. And he seems to be quite offended by the fact that this model has been made and it's an accurate model.
What got my back up was they used some of our photos,
Presumably to make it.
but hadn't got all the data.
Now this really starts to sound like gatekeeping, because he goes on to suggest that he wants this listing removed from eBay because it's their intellectual property. He doesn't want people to be copying it.
We don't want people pretending they have an accurate model of our dodecahedron.
Well, why ever not? Not only does the eBay listing make it clear that it's a replica, but why in the world would you not want people to be able to feel it, touch it, see it as a replica in its own right? Surely having an accurate model is one way to do that. In fact, it's better than this. This is a plastic 3D printed one, as I keep saying. Well, if he had this replica that was made out of metal, well, that's someone's skill. Someone's put their work and effort into that, and that's better than this.
We're the ones that have to be responsible for its integrity.
Well, why ever so? An object like this, the original Roman dodecahedron that they found, that should be in a museum forever for people to celebrate and enjoy and learn from. But it's not. And this is where the next problem is. There is, or was, no title agreement organised by Norton Disney Archaeological Society with the landowner before they started digging. So the mistake they've made is they didn't get this title agreement before they started, and now anything they found belongs to the landowner. If you're an archaeological society, my understanding, and forgive me if I got this wrong, but my understanding is you need to get a title agreement. So if you find something as significant as this, it doesn't go into someone's personal collection. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind people having stuff that they can celebrate, but surely an archaeological society, if you're a metal detector, fine, you're doing stuff and you're digging, you find some coins, you find some bits and pieces, but if you find something that's worth this much, and completely forget value, worth this much to our understanding of the history of everything, it should be in a museum. It should be there ready for people to study. We may have new technology in the future which allows us to get some kind of, not DNA, but something from it that tells us about it, something we could analyse even further, some kind of spectroscopy. I don't know. But the point is, when you have this in the hands of a person, it then becomes valuesome. It then has a value to it. And that's not what you want with archaeological objects. You don't want them to have a physical value where someone can profit from it, because again, the landowner may be the nicest human being in the world and he may just give it to a museum. Good on him. He might not. What happens if, God forbid, one day he passes and it gets into the hands of somebody that doesn't understand it or doesn't sort of see anything other than, I could sell this and make a quick buck. This should be in a museum. Sorry, forgive the rant. I guess soon I'm going to be making a video called something like What's Wrong with Archaeology? Because I kind of, by default, I think I make archaeological videos, even though I don't try to. I kind of end up doing that to tell good stories, or what I believe are good stories. And I think this, to me, is really important because I love that community. I like a lot. I love the people in it. I love how they are. And I've met so many nice people from it. But I think it's like all these wonderful individuals, but sometimes there's this big problem with linking everything together and there's holes. And I want to talk about things like this in this problem, where archaeology falls down. Accessibility to information is one of the most important things. It shouldn't be, oh no, you can't see the dimensions of this, you can't look at this, you can't study this, you can't do anything with it, it's our intellectual property. No, it doesn't work like that. Okay, so I guess the one mistake I made is to not get a metal version done myself when I did this replica, a proper highly skilled sort of one. That would give me a better feel for the object rather than this very lightweight plastic one. So I guess that's me holding my hand up saying I did make a mistake. Anyway, I appreciate you listening to my rant, because it was quite a rant. I'll be back this time next week with a production as you'd normally come to expect, where I'm pointing at things and saying, ooh, look at this. Subscribe, like, etc. And we'll see you this time next week.